Stranger Things podcast episode number 1, The Vanishing of Will Byers. Hello and welcome to the Stranger Things podcast. I'm Daryl.
I'm Addie.
How are you?
Good.
Were you trying to eat the microphone?
Yeah.
You know, that's an expression when you tell somebody to eat the microphone. That means like get right up on it. It doesn't mean literally eat the microphone. But I'm glad you're not afraid to get right up on the microphone.
I should have gotten more applesauce. I'm hungry.
Oh, well, it's so good to be sitting in the studio with you again, talking about Stranger Things. It's been several weeks since we recorded that introductory episode.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are finally getting our acts together and recording some real episodes of the podcast. So I don't know about you, but I'm really excited about that.
I've memorized basically the entire episode. This is all your fault. It's taken so long.
Well, it is my fault. I mean, I traveled for a week and I had to then prepare for that trip before I left and stuff. So yeah. And you know, the reason we are like what forced us to finally get into the studio and record these episodes is that you're going to be gone next week and then you're back home for a week. And then you and I are both gone for 2 weeks straight pretty much after that. So we have to do 4 episodes this week, starting like we're recording this on June 20th. And then like the first week of July, we're recording the final 4 episodes. So you and I have got ourselves into a situation where we're having to record a lot of episodes in a short amount of time.
Sounds familiar.
It does, but it should be a lot of fun. And Addie and I are super grateful that you have decided to join us for this journey through Stranger Things. If you've already seen the series, in case you haven't seen the intro episode, if you've already seen the series and you're wondering, is this podcast for you? I think so, because Addie has already seen the series, the first season, I should say, the series up to this point, and I have not. So if you have already seen the first season, then you'll be watching or listening to this podcast with Addison's perspective and probably laughing at me. And if you haven't seen the full season yet, if you're watching it an episode at a time like I am, then this podcast is for you too, because you'll be able to join along, not be spoiled about what hasn't happened yet, and, you know, make contributions to the podcast with your feedback and just kind of join us for the ride an episode at a time. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Cool.
All right. Addison's very talkative tonight. This is going to be a problem. That's right. We'll get her warmed up here in just a minute. So for this episode, we are talking about Stranger Things Season 1, Episode 1. Who wrote and directed this episode, Addison?
It's written and directed by the Duffer Brothers.
That's right. Who are the Duffer Brothers?
The creator of Stranger Things. That's correct.
Just making sure you knew the most basic of trivia about Stranger Things.
I said creator. I meant creators.
Yes.
They're brothers.
What's their relation to each other?
They're brothers. I just said that 3 seconds ago.
Okay, just making sure you're listening to yourself.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's give you a brief rundown of how the episode's going to be shaped, what we're going to be doing in today's episode. And that way you kind of know what to expect, and you can even skip around to some of those other spots if you want to. We're going to get it kicked off with an episode recap. Then we are going to, the big part of the episode is just going to be discussing the actual Stranger Things episode. After that, we're going to take listener feedback, which we did get a contribution for today's episode, which I'm really excited about. We're also going to share our social media. We'll probably do that a few times throughout the podcast episode. Addison has picked out her quote of the week, so we will share that with you. And I'm going to give some of my predictions about what I think is going to happen, or questions that I have, and that sort of thing. I'll also talk about a few cultural connections that I picked up on as I was watching this episode. Then we'll talk about some news and rumors, which won't necessarily in this particular episode be a whole lot of news and rumors about the TV show, but we've got some other news related to our podcast as it ties into the show that we're going to talk about then. And the
meme of the week.
The piece de resistance. The meme of the week.
Re-say that sentence right now.
The meme. Sorry, I forgot it was French. The meme of the week.
The meme of the week.
That's what I said.
No, you said Mimi and Mame.
Yeah, something's wrong with your pronunciation.
Something's wrong with you.
All right. Addis and I are going to get this sorted out while you listen to the episode recap. November 6th, 1983, Hawkins, Indiana. In the lower levels of Hawkins National Laboratory, a scientist in a lab coat runs down a dark hallway, frantically pushing buttons and trying to operate an elevator. When the elevator arrives, the man enters and is seemingly safe. But then, something growls above him. Terror fills the man's face, his eyes widened. As the doors close, he's violently pulled upwards. Meanwhile, 4 middle schoolers, Mike, Dustin, Lucas, and Will, play Dungeons & Dragons in Mike's basement. The 4 boys want to play a while longer, as they've just encountered the fearsome Demogorgon. But Mike's mother insists it's time for them to go home. While Will and Dustin are riding their bikes home, they decide to race so that if Will wins, he gets one of Dustin's comic books. As Will pushes ahead, he rides onto Mirkwood, a road near Hawkins' lab. He's frightened by a mysterious figure in the middle of the road, and he crashes his bike. Will hears something in the distance which frightens him and sends him running home. However, the mysterious creature chases him. He tries to call for help, but the phone is not working. As the creature breaks in through his front door, Will runs and hides in a shed in the backyard of his house. He shakily loads a gun to fend off whatever is coming for him. The shed's dangling light bulb begins to flicker. A strange, guttural growl is heard, and Will vanishes. The next morning, Will's mother, Joyce, and his older brother, Jonathan, are unable to find him. Joyce calls Mike's house to see if Will stayed there, but Karen tells her that he left the night before. At Hawkins Middle School, Dustin, Mike, and Lucas are a little surprised that they haven't seen Will yet. They have a run-in with the bullies before heading to class. Meanwhile, at Hawkins High School, Nancy, Mike's sister, makes out with Steve Harrington in the bathroom, and they make plans to meet up later. Joyce hurries to the police station to talk to Chief Hopper, who she hopes can help find her son. As Hawkins is a quiet, sleepy town, Chief Hopper questions Joyce's claims and doesn't take her too seriously. Hopper's first instinct is to question her ex-husband, Lonnie, but Joyce insists that any potential involvement of his in Will's disappearance is unlikely. Nonetheless, she agrees to call him. At Hawkins' lab, a team of scientists, including Dr. Brenner, suit up in protective suits before entering the quarantined underground subsystem. There, they find strange biologic growth spreading, originating from a mysterious fracture in the wall. A young girl dressed in a hospital gown with a completely shaven head wanders into Benny's Burgers. Benny Hammond, the owner, catches her in the kitchen stealing fries. After class at Hawkins Middle, the boys become overwhelmed with excitement when their science teacher reveals that the Heathkit ham shack he ordered has been delivered. However, the school principal and Chief Hopper interrupt to question them about Will's way home the previous night. He tells them to go straight home after school and not go biking around looking for Will. In a flashback scene, Joyce is in the woods at Castle Byers, surprising Will with tickets to see Poltergeist. In the present time, Joyce and Jonathan are at the fort, looking for Will. Back at Benny's Burgers, Benny feeds the girl and attempts to make conversation, but she keeps quiet. He realizes she has the digits 011 tattooed on her left forearm. When Benny inquires about the number's meaning, the girl indicates that the numbers refer to herself. While she eats, Benny steps away to make a phone call to social services. He assumes the girl has been abused. The girl becomes irritated by a noisy fan. She stares intensely at it, lowering her head. Suddenly, the music on the radio becomes heavily distorted, and the fan jolts and stops. The girl relaxes and resumes eating. At Mirkwood, Hopper and his officers Powell and Callahan are out on the road where Will crashed his bike. They find it tipped over and abandoned by the trees on the side of the road. Joyce tries to call Lonnie but is hung up on by his girlfriend Cynthia. The cops show up with Will's bike. Hopper looks around the house for clues and is drawn to the shed. The light flickers and he is startled by Callahan entering the shed. He tells them that they need to organize a search party. Mike and his family sit around the dinner table. Mike wants to go looking for Will, but his mother says no. Nancy asks her mother to go study at her friend Barb's house. She says that nobody leaves the house until Will is found. Nancy gets upset, and in a fight with Mike, he spills the beans about her new boyfriend. A search party is out in the woods at night looking for Will. Scott Clark tells Hopper that Will is a good student. It's revealed that Hopper's daughter died a few years back. Lucas and Mike talk on their walkie-talkies. They discuss how Will was willing to put himself in danger to help the group while playing D&D the night before, and they agree to meet up and look for him. Mike spots Steve trying to sneak into Nancy's room. Benny is doing dishes in the kitchen and tells the girl that a smile looks good on her. A woman claiming to be from social services arrives to pick her up. Benny invites the woman into the diner, and when his back is turned, the woman shoots Benny. Benny is deceased on the floor, while a number of agents arrive to collect the girl, who uses her telekinetic abilities to kill two of the agents and then escapes. The boys are out searching for Will while Nancy and Steve study in secret in her room. Steve makes moves on Nancy, and she puts him in his place. They return to study. Joyce and Jonathan go through family photos. Jonathan breaks down feeling guilty about his brother's disappearance. Joyce tells him it's not his fault, that Will is close, that she can feel it. They choose a picture for his missing flyers. Joyce receives an ominous static call on her home phone. Joyce says to Jonathan that she can hear Will breathing. There's static, some growling, and the lights flicker. The phone surges with electricity, briefly electrocuting Joyce. While searching for Will in the rain, Dustin wants to turn back. Mike and Lucas disagree, moving forth with their plan. They hear rustling in the bushes and find the girl. And we're back. I love that we get to do the episode recap, like pre-produce it, package it. That way we don't have to like read it as we go on the episode. Saves a lot of post-production time too. That was one of the smartest things I ever did on the Fringe podcast, was when we went to reading the episode recap to pre-producing the episode recap. Why are you smiling and nodding at me?
Because it's fun.
I see. Well, they can't see that when they're listening.
Oh, well.
Okay.
They'll know it now.
All right.
You didn't have to say anything.
That's true. All right. How about some episode discussion? The episode starts, I love that it gives you the date, November 6th, 1983, and the place, Hawkins, Indiana. At the same time, I don't know, it feels like it could be just about any small town in America. Like, it didn't have to identify it, but with the location, the 80s definitely has the 80s vibe.
I was devastated when I found out that Hawkins, Indiana isn't a real place.
What?
It's not a real place.
Here's a little tidbit for you. On our Twitter page, which you can follow us on Twitter. Oh, by the way, in the last episode, the preview episode, we gave out our social media information, and we made a rookie mistake and gave out the information before we had actually set up the accounts. And we listed our Twitter account as Stranger Things GSM. That Twitter ID is actually too long to be a legit Twitter account, so we had to like figure something else out. So we are Upside Down GSM. That's where you can follow us for reals on Twitter. So we set that up, and I put you put in your birthday and your place when you set up the account, and I put our birthday as November 6th, 1983, and our location as Hawkins, Indiana.
You lied to them.
I don't know. Maybe that's really where we were born and where we live.
I like how they said November 6th. I mean, if it was 20 days later, it'd be better. It's my birthday.
Not 1983, though.
Oh, yeah, but still.
2003.
2002, Dad.
I know. Just see if you're paying attention. I really did know that. I know your birthday, and you know mine. We actually, this is an inside joke within our family that Addison is the one of my two children who actually remembers my birthday.
And how old you are.
That's right. That's right.
And I got you Starbucks.
So the first thing we see is the Hawkins National Laboratory, the U.S. Department of Energy. What did you think of the whole opening sequence? Like from that with the scientist freaking out all the way to Will vanishing in the shed, like that whole opening sequence. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I was kind of confused at first. I think because I watched this like a long time ago. I was like confused at first, and I was like, wait, why is he like running and stuff? And then whenever they were like playing the game, and then he like randomly stopped in the street because he saw like a figure.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I first watched that episode, I didn't notice that he saw something. Like I thought he just like stopped and fell or something.
Okay.
Like I was like so confused because why did he do that? Yeah, but after I like rewatched the episode, it made a lot more sense.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I actually missed it too. What I missed though was that we actually saw the shadowy figure for a half a second. I realized that it was inferred that he saw the creature or something that scared him, but I missed that split second when we see the creature too. On my second rewatch, I'm like, how did you miss that? Because it's obvious, but...
Yeah, I keep my brightness really low on my phone, and it's even darker whenever I watch Netflix and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's probably what happened.
Yeah, that's probably it. So you mentioned last week, or in our introductory episode, that you saw the Mimi of the week, or you saw a Mimi and it was she's crazy. That's how my friends introduced me, or something to that effect. And that
she's our friend and she's crazy.
Yeah. And then that caused you to realize that Stranger Things was a thing, and you went and watched it. And then after the first 15 minutes, you were like, this is good.
Yeah.
I think that was a pretty strong impersonation of you, if I remember how you said that. So when you said that the first 15 minutes, and this is good, was that up to that opening credits that you were talking about, or was it beyond that, or what part of the episode was that section you're referring to?
I don't know.
Okay.
15 minutes was just an estimate.
Well, okay, and so, that's why I asked you if it was like until the credits rolled or something like that.
Yeah, it was until like the light bulb started flashing in the shed. I think it was right after he disappeared. It was either right before or right after. I can't remember. But then like Netflix like stopped working, and I was like, dude, are you serious?
Did that have anything to do with your unhealthy infatuation with sheds? Was I not supposed to tell people about that? Okay, let's act like that didn't happen. Let's act like you have a normal appreciation for sheds, like every other person. This is a moment where I wish we were live broadcasting this. Addison is just...
I'm crying.
Okay. So for the reason I'm asking you about the intro and what you thought of it and stuff like that, because I really felt like this show has one of the stronger openings of any show I've ever seen. There are really two shows for me that stand out above any other that I've ever seen. Lost to me is still number one, the pilot episode, and I'm not sure when the credits rolled on that one. In fact, I'm not sure if the credits rolled until we saw Lost at the very end of that episode. But that first segment, 10 minutes or so, is just exhilarating and just launches you into the episode and the series like nothing else I've ever seen. And then Fringe for me is amazing as well. The opening with that on the airplane and the guy's face melting off and all of that just makes you go, what? I've got to keep watching to figure out what in the world's going on. And to me, this is right up there. In fact, I might put it up there equal with Fringe. Lost is still the best by far of anything I've ever seen. But to me, this was such a strong opening. Like it gets to that point where, like you said, in the shed where the light dims, and I'm just like, wow, let's go. Let's do this. So to me, it was an incredibly strong opening.
Yeah. And for like the actual like theme song and stuff.
Yeah.
Every single time it comes on, I dance to it. Like I have it on my Spotify playlist.
Yeah.
Legit. And there's a skip intro button on Netflix, but they really should have that on there for Stranger Things because it's amazing. And whenever Mom and Colby were watching it, they skipped the intro a couple times, and I was like, What is wrong with you? Why would you purposely skip the intro?
Mm-hmm. We have our next door neighbors are Alan and Mandy, and they're really super cool people, and they're nerds like we are. And so I sent her a text earlier today, actually, and I said, hey, have you and Alan watched Stranger Things? And she's like, we love Stranger Things. And before I could reply to say, oh, cool, Addie and I are doing a podcast, she replied again and said, its theme song is my ringtone. So,
yes, she's awesome.
So yeah, apparently they're really into it. So then I told her that we had a podcast. Let me ask you, this is a question that you may not be able to answer because you know so much, but what is the scientist running from? I mean, obviously to me, he's running from the thing that took Will, the thing that Will saw in the street, but what is it? Is it a creature that they created? Is it like some sort of animal that then they injected with something or turned into some sort of mutant, or what is it? Is that can you speculate on that, or do you already know?
Does it say the name of the monster in episode 1?
Well, no.
Or what the kids are calling it?
The kids call it the Demogorgon, which I even as a I haven't watched anything, I know that. So I don't really think that that's spoilery. Okay,
yeah. So the kids call it the Demogorgon, but if you actually like have played Dungeons and Dragons or know what the Demogorgon figure looks like, it doesn't really look like that, or like how they have it on the show. So I don't think it's the Demogorgon, but it's some sort of other monster. So yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I love too when the kids are playing D&D and Will rolled a 7 and the Demogorgon got him. And that's complete foreshadowing at that point. Like and it doesn't take long to figure that out. I mean, because like I said before the opening credits, Will is captured by the Demogorgon. But I still I appreciated the foreshadowing they had with the boys and their D&D game that they were playing.
Either Dustin or Lucas, one of them says to Will, like he says it was a 7, and then the other one says, did Mike see it? And then Will says, no, he didn't see it. So then the other one says it doesn't count since Mike didn't see it. And then he decided to tell Mike that it was a 7 and he lost.
Right. He was honest about it.
Yeah. And he could have casted the protection spell and like protected himself, but he didn't, and he chose Fireball, and he tried to like protect his friends.
Everybody. Yeah. So the D&D game is over. They're going to race back to a certain point. Then they have to part ways, right? Which keeps Will by himself. But I'm talking about Dustin and Will. But they have a race about the X-Men comic book. It's X-Men number 134. What do you know about this comic?
So the cover of it looks like a Stranger Things shirt that I have that I got from Loot Crate.
Mm-hmm.
So it has the, background with the Demogorgon, and then it has 11 in the middle with her arm, out her thing, and then
her thing. Okay.
It doesn't make noise at all, but and then the sides have all the characters like Hopper and Joyce and Jonathan and Will and Dustin and Mike and Lucas.
Mike Wazowski.
We went over this last time.
I know we made it like 20 minutes almost into this podcast before I got to it. Okay, is that all you know about the comic?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, and I don't know a whole lot about it either. I did find the comic online, and I didn't read the whole thing. I would love to hear from you listening because I know we have a lot of really nerdy, aka awesome comic book folks in our listening audience at Golden Spiral Media. So I would love to know, because I can read about a comic, I can read the comic, and I can read about like the wiki page, which I also did that, but that's only giving you a snapshot of what that particular issue is about. And really the fuller context is grasped by knowing what led up to that point, what happens after that point, the greater context.
The whole series?
Yeah. And now I know that this is your T-shirt that you're talking about, as you mentioned, closely mimics that cover of that particular issue. I believe it's Jean Grey is the X-Men who is in the middle of that, where 11 is on your T-shirt. And in this episode, she has an encounter because she has Jean Grey has telepathic abilities, and she has a mind meld, and the end result of that causes her to become Dark Phoenix, where she kind of, I believe, fully comes into her powers. And that's kind of where my knowledge and understanding of this comic stops. I don't fully...
Yeah, that's the last page. I looked at the last page.
Yeah, but even then, I'm like, I don't fully know Jean Grey's powers. I have a pretty good grasp on them, I think. And then as she is the Phoenix, there I get really foggy because most of my knowledge on that comes from what I've seen in the movies. And then the Dark Phoenix, I'm completely lost at that point. So, like I said, I'd love to have some input from our listener base to get some feedback on this comic, some foreshadowing that it may lay out in terms of 11 and the series as a whole, and even some tie-ins that you've seen. At that point, we get a little bit dangerous with spoilers, unless you want me to save your feedback for our final episode when we cover episode 8. But anyway, yeah, send us in your thoughts on that, because you've just heard the limit to what Addie and I know about that particular comic. But they definitely threw it out there for importance, so I think we should probably bone up on our knowledge of episode 134. All right. So at this point in the episode, we have Will at home. Now, I wanted to share a story with you. This might freak you out, and you're about to go to bed here in a few minutes. So sorry if this gives you nightmares. So Will is in the house. He has ran home from after he crashed his bike. He ran home, locked the door. He's trying to call for help. And we see like this silhouette, right, of the Demogorgon.
Yeah, he looks out the window and you see it coming. And then a couple of seconds later, you see it like through the window, and then the door unlocks, and I'm just like...
Yeah. Okay. So we grew up... You've seen my house that we grew up in. It's outside of that small town that we went to that one time.
Yeah.
And so we lived about 2 miles outside of town, and our house had a one of those front doors with like a decorative pane, like a stained glass window type of pane, that was almost exactly the texture of what you see in the TV show. It was bigger than that. The window was bigger than that, but it was that same texture where it was translucent. You could just kind of see figures through it. You couldn't see definitions or anything. You certainly couldn't make out faces. You could just see, shapes. And my parents went bowling. They were in a bowling league. And so they were gone. I think it was on Tuesday nights. Every Tuesday night they would go bowling. And so it was just me and my real brother, who is 2 years older than me, and our stepbrother, who is 1 year, like he's in between us. So it was me and then our stepbrother and then my real brother, all a year apart. And we had this like entryway that was probably like 8 feet wide by 8 feet long, or maybe 6 feet by 8 feet or something like that, where you came in, it was all tiled. And so that's where we all kept our shoes, because we were always muddy and stuff like that. And then that opened up into a hallway, which when you're kids is all you need to play football. We would roughhouse and play in that hallway. And we had our video game system set up at the end of the hallway. It was right between our bedrooms. We could come out of our bedrooms and, play the video game. So that was kind of our communal area where all three of us boys would always play and roughhouse and wrestle and just do whatever. And so we were there playing in that hallway. And again, the parents are gone. It's dark. It's night. And the front porch light is on. And again, it opens up into this opening where the entryway is. And we see somebody walk up to the door. And the window in the door would stretch from almost the top of the door, so you could see the full top of the head, all the way probably down to mid-thigh, not knee. I don't think it went down that. It wasn't that big of a window, but you could see a good chunk of space. And we see somebody walk up to the door, and they're just standing there. And it's a man.
They don't knock or anything?
They don't knock. They don't ring the doorbell.
They had doorbells back then?
Yes, we had doorbells back then. And he just stands there. And so we're all roughhouses, and we just kind of stop and freeze, because it's like, who is it? And he just stands there. And then he turns and walks away. And we're all just like, what? Because it's creepy, right? We're out in the country. It's at night. This strange figure walks up to the door, just stands there, and then turns and walks away. And so after, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute, we all kind of muster up our nerves, and we open the door and we go out. We don't see anybody anywhere. Now, it was out in the country, and he could have, who knows where he could have gone, because it was dark, even though we had porch light on and stuff like that. There's no street lights. And so, yeah, the mystery man disappeared. And to this day, I don't know. But it creeped us out so bad.
So if it's any of you guys, call us.
So as I'm watching the episode and you see the figure of the Demogorgon go across that window, totally gave me flashbacks to that night with the creepy man standing at our door.
Was he just like staring into your house or trying to?
Yes. So
you guys couldn't go in front of the window.
Right.
Wait, how did you know he was there if you couldn't go in front of the window?
Well, we could see the window, but we didn't go to the door. I don't know. Again, because it's got that covering on the glass, so I don't know if he could see us or not. But we could, because he's out in the light, and we could definitely see the figure of him. What he could see, I have no idea. And maybe he was like a thief or someone, but just trying to figure out if somebody was home, and he realized we were home and decided to not break into our house. I don't know.
Okay.
It's creepy. Okay.
Why did you say this would give me nightmares?
Well, because I tried to tell that story to your mom one time and she wouldn't let me finish. Okay, so we've talked about Will going to the shed and disappearing and all that stuff.
So right after the credits are over, Hopper is sleeping on his couch and there's a news broadcast in the background and she's talking about a power outage with an unknown cause. And right before they all left Mike's house the night before, his lights were being all weird and stuff, like right before he turns off the light in his garage. And then right before the Demogorgon gets Will, the light in his bike turns off and then turns back on. So that could have something to do with it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we see, okay, so I'm really curious about when we see 11 later on and she turns off the fan. I mean, because that has something to do with electricity also, as an electrical fan. And now we see the Demogorgon, who came from the same place as 11. We're going to learn here in just a few minutes. He also seems electricity is impacted by him as well. So I'm just really curious about that. Should I give you my theory now, or should I wait till my predictions section?
Are you gonna forget?
No, I've got it in the notes.
Okay, then wait.
Okay, I will wait. I thought it was interesting too. This is our first introduction to Hopper, and he's overslept. There's beer cans everywhere. The TV was left on all night, and then we see him out on his back patio, half dressed, and we see him showering, and then I love this, he brushes his teeth, he smokes a cigarette.
I noticed that.
He drinks a beer.
He takes some pills.
Yeah. So I would do all that before you brush your teeth, but whatever, man. And you're not really thinking, you're like, man, this guy's a lowlife, and then he puts on the uniform and it's like the chief of police, and you just know there's a story here. Like, you don't expect these to be the behaviors of your chief of police. We got a clue to that at the very first scene when we first saw his house. There was that children's artwork there, and it showed a mommy and a daddy and a little girl. And we learned at the very end of the episode kind of some more of that story. But now when you have those two pieces and you see his behavior, you kind of understand maybe some of the demons he's battling in his life, and it starts to kind of fit together a little bit.
Yeah.
I hope we get to learn more, though.
You do.
Okay, good. Spoiler alert. That's not spoilery. Okay. So at this point, Joyce has figured out that Will is missing, and she is just railing on Jonathan, the older brother. And I'm wondering if, Jonathan and Will are from different relationships. Like maybe they're half brothers. There's a pretty big difference in their ages. So it could just be that maybe Will was unplanned. But you know what I mean? Or because of the age difference, but also because she's putting so much burden and responsibility on Jonathan. She's really being unfair to Jonathan.
Yeah.
I mean, Jonathan's in there cooking breakfast and she's yelling at him because he didn't get Will up. I mean, who's the parent here? Who's the one responsible for getting Will up? Either Will or Joyce, not Jonathan. And then when she finds out that Jonathan wasn't at home the night before, it was because Jonathan, again, was trying to be responsible and worked an extra shift to help the family out financially. And, you know, she's just railing on him for that. And it just seems like Jonathan's a really good guy who's trying to be responsible, has more responsibility placed on him than he probably should. Not that he can't handle it, but most kids of that age, he's still in school. Like he should be worrying about things that people his age worry about. And so anyway, I just felt like she was being completely out of line. But at the end of the episode, they kind of have a bonding moment where they cry together and hug, and she apologizes to him. So
when they're looking through the pictures?
Yeah, when they're looking through the pictures. So I'm hoping that their relationship will get better.
It's also kind of like a foreshadowing whenever they're looking through the pictures. Because she says something about, like these pictures are amazing or something. So like he took the pictures. Yeah, like he took the pictures. Yeah, so he's got a talent there of photography that maybe is untapped because he's having all these other responsibilities, or maybe she doesn't recognize because she's either focusing on Will or her job, and I can't figure out which it is, or maybe it's a little bit of both. But I definitely feel like she favors Will over Jonathan. Maybe it's not usually like that, but since the whole story is basically just them like without Will, maybe it's not normally like that. Maybe. It is hard, especially with me, because I've only seen the one episode at this point, and it's their entire relationship, except for that first 2 minutes when he's cooking breakfast and she's upset with him because he didn't wake Will up. After she goes to Will's bedroom and he's not there, now we've got a crisis on our hands. And so almost my entire knowledge of them is in crisis mode. So I certainly don't have a full grasp of how things are working between them. But my first impression is she needs to chillax a little bit on Jonathan. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. What were your thoughts, or do you have any about Hopper? So Joyce freaks out. She goes to visit Hopper. A great scene, by the way. Might be more of this scene coming up later. But when Joyce confronts Hopper, and he's just like blows her off completely. Did you have any thoughts on that? Well, I was kind of like, why are you doing this? Like, her child is missing. But then it seems like something like logical that would happen because she's, crazy. And since we don't know what she's normally like, is she like normally crazy, or is she just like this because her child's missing? Right. And he also said that the worst thing that has happened within the 4 years that he's been working there is an owl attacking someone's head. That was hilarious. Yeah. I wonder if that is a Twin Peaks reference. Huh? Twin Peaks. One of these days, you got to watch Twin Peaks. Why can't I watch it now? You probably could. There's no reason why you can't. Is it on Netflix? I don't know if it's on Netflix or not. But anyway, you should. It's pretty weird and crazy, but it's really good. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of had the same impressions you did, where on one hand, you're like, dude, this woman is freaking out. Her son is missing. But again, we have more knowledge than either of them do. It's a small podunk town. Nothing ever happens there. So you kind of don't blame him for just wanting to calm her down and help reassure her that nothing has gone wrong. But of course, we know that something is actually very seriously wrong. So it's going to take him a while to figure that out, but he eventually does. Okay, so the next thing we get is back at the lab. We get a little bit more information. I'm really curious about this too, but I know you can't say too much. So tell me what you can, but obviously don't spoil me. But we see a bunch of scientists getting into like quarantine gear,
They go into this area where like the lights are flickering again, electrical issues. I thought that was interesting. We see a crack in the wall, I think, and like some stuff like pulsating on the wall. One of them asks about the girl, and I think the other one says she can't have gone far or something to that effect, which I'm pretty sure they're talking about 11 because of what we see later on in the episode with them hunting her down and stuff. So I'm guessing that that's where the Demogorgon came from, and he escaped from there. That's why I was saying earlier, like the Demogorgon is some sort of creature or mutant that they have created. Like maybe it was a human and they tried to mix it with some sort of other animal. And I'm coming up with this theory. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just about to give you my theory on 11 and the Demogorgon. So I don't know. I just found this scene to be really mysterious and interesting. Like there's some really big clues there, but I don't know what to do with them yet.
I don't know what to say.
Do you not know what to say because you don't want to spoil me, or because you just don't really know what to say?
Both.
Okay.
Because I also rewatched the last episode today.
Okay, so you I don't want you to spoil me then. Man, I really want to know. Okay, we'll just wait. I'll know it here before too long because we're going to finish the series here pretty quickly. Okay, so let's get back to Hopper. He's at the school. He's interviewing the three boys. And again, I'm not impressed with Hopper. He's a complete jerk to these guys. Now, in his defense, the three boys were completely disrespectful, couldn't stay focused, were being silly, and all that stuff. So I can understand why he was getting mad, but I don't know. I didn't feel like he had to be such a jerk to the guys.
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of rude to them. And when he was telling them like a street name or something, they said it was like a reference to Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit or something.
Yeah.
And then Dustin just corrected Lucas.
Right.
Saying it was the other one.
Yeah, that was like the first of like two back-to-back Tolkien references we got. We got the one there where they were fighting over it being Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. And then we get the flashback right after that with Joyce and the Castle Byers or whatever it was called. Is that what it was called?
Yeah, Castle Byers.
Yeah.
And the password.
Yeah, the password was Radagast, which is a character from The Hobbit.
Yeah, I actually Googled that earlier because I had no idea who that character was.
Yeah,
I've
and
never
now that
seen
I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure if I know he's a character in the Hobbit movie, but I'm thinking that's actually a character from another piece of literature that Tolkien did that's in the Lord of the Rings universe that Peter Jackson pulled into the Hobbit movie just to kind of flesh it out because he turned a single book into 3 freaking movies. But either way, Radagast is a character, a wizard from the Tolkien universe. So again, as we're establishing this show, we talked in our introductory episode about Stephen King and John Carpenter and Steven Spielberg and some of their movies. Now we're seeing some other pieces here with X-Men and Tolkien, some things that, again, we should probably kind of have our antenna focused toward those works in order to really glean pieces of information that, at the very least, drew inspiration, were sources of inspiration for this show, but also might give us some clues as to what's happening within this particular show. So does that mean you and I need to do a Lord of the Rings binge as well?
I'd rather not.
What?
They also referenced Poltergeist.
Yes. Yeah, and I think you and I talked about Poltergeist a little bit in our intro episode. I don't recall if we talked about that or not, but you're right. That was also referenced.
This is creepy. I just Googled Poltergeist.
You've never seen Poltergeist, have you?
Why would I watch it?
I first saw it when I was probably 7 years old, something like that. It freaked me out a little bit.
A little?
Yeah, we were over at my mom would send us off to a babysitter, and while she was at work, and so it must have been the summertime. And this babysitter, they had it. I don't know if they had it because they had HBO or if they had it on like VHS tape, but we watched it, and it was pretty scary.
I think I remember one of these scenes because I Googled Poltergeist, and there's like a little girl with her hands like on the TV or something like that.
Yep.
I think I remember something like that, like with a little girl, but I don't think I've seen the actual whole movie.
I don't think you have either. It seems like it was on TV not too long ago, like in the last year, and we watched a part of it, but I
don't remember ever doing that. But I remember watching it like on my own just because it was on TV and I didn't know what it was. And then I got kind of freaked out with the little girl, and I was like, okay, bye. Yeah,
that's what I mean. It wasn't a family movie night or something like that. It was just, it was on and it was on in the house. So maybe you were the one watching it or something. I don't know. But that's another movie we should watch.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could handle that. Okay. So we see in the Castle Byers, and this is the only note I made. I didn't actually make more note when I watched the episode for the second time. There was a comic book and it had Dragonfire in the headline. So I always look at books and stuff that are placed around. Like there was a book in Hopper's house that I couldn't make out the title or the author. But I always look for stuff like that as clues again as to what might be going on or sources of inspiration. So if you have information about that book, if there's more to it than I saw or missed, then please let us know. But anyway, I thought Dragonfire was something of note for sure. Maybe foreshadowing or something like that. Okay, let's talk this. The rest of this stuff's going to get really interesting. So 11 shows up in the diner, and we don't know. We're kind of like the diner owner. First, we don't know it's a girl because her head's shaved, so she looks like a boy. We don't know her name. But through the course of him interacting with her, and I loved this. I loved the diner owner character so much. What was his name, by the way?
Benny Hammond.
Okay. Benny, because at first he's like really protective. I mean, this person's in there stealing food. But within seconds, he realizes this is a person in need. I mean, she's in a hospital gown, and you can tell she's just not, she's a victim. She's not someone who's malicious about anything. And so he instantly turns into being upset with her to being compassionate towards her and trying to help her. And through that, I mean, with hardly any screen time at all, you really come to appreciate and care for Benny as a character. He gives her some food and he asks her about the tattoo. She kind of shirks away and tries to hide it. And then she says that's her name. So that's pretty interesting that she would have a number as a name. Do you have any thoughts or theories you can give me on that, or will you be spoiling me?
You can tell she's not like from a very good place because she has like really limited vocabulary and she can't like speak that much.
Yeah.
And like it surprised him whenever she actually like said no. Like that's the first word she says in the whole show. So.
Yep, good observation. Do you think that maybe does she not speak because she doesn't know how, or because the other thing we see her here in this scene, and I mentioned it earlier, it was her shutting off the fan with her mind. She has some mind control capabilities. So do you think that maybe she is just used to communicating with her mind and verbal vocalization is not something that she's accustomed to needing to use in order to communicate?
Well, I think she would still have to like actually talk. So maybe like the place she ran away from, maybe she was like kept in a cell by herself, like in a room. So maybe she didn't talk that much, but I'm thinking she probably did because she would still have to interact with other like human beings. Yeah,
she just doesn't trust him, and so she doesn't want to talk. Or maybe she's just because she's so emotionally unstable, she's scared and is kind of recoiled within herself. What do you think?
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I don't know either. I'm just speculating.
Whenever he points out her 11 tattoo, she gets really defensive.
Yeah, she does. And that tattoo, you see the tattoo on her arm. I mean, what it's also reminiscent of is the Jews during World War II, as they were rounded up by the Nazis and taken to concentration camps, they were all tattooed on the arm with they have these serial numbers and stuff like that. So when you see a tattoo, if you ever see one of those in real life, you instantly know what that person has gone through. And, that was a long time ago. So those people, there's not as many of them around as there once was. I've never seen one in real life. I've only seen pictures and things on TV and that sort of thing. But it certainly is reminiscent of that. When you see someone with a tattoo on their arm like that, it instantly takes your mind to that and all that's associated with the cruelty that the Jews went through during the Holocaust at the hand of the Nazis. And so, there's some imagery and some emotion that is immediately evoked by just seeing that tattoo on her arm. So for me, I see that and I'm like, whoever did that to her, now I see them as evil as the Nazis, for example. Make sense?
I guess, even though that was like 40 years before Stranger Things took place.
It was good math. It was, but still, that's again, seeing the tattoo on the arm is something that I don't know. I don't think that's accidental. I think that they placed it there to really help us understand the evil that she has gone through or she's been subjected to.
Well, I have no idea. So
okay. Well, I guess hopefully we'll find out as we learn more about her and her past. Okay, so bringing the episode to almost a close here. So she gets away. Okay, so that was crazy. What did you say his name was? Benny?
Yeah.
Okay, so Benny calls social services. They show up a few hours later, only it's not social services. This lady pulls out a gun and kills him. And my goodness, I was like stunned. My notes are, it's a lie. Diner guy is dead or just shot. And I was because like I said, he was so in that short amount of time, he had endeared himself to me as a viewer because of the care that he was showing towards her. So I hated to see him die. But what we get out of that is we don't really get to see Eleven do her thing, but we see the results, the aftermath of Eleven doing her thing to get away from the two goons with guns in the back of the diner. And she's pretty awesome. Do you remember what you originally thought when that scene took place?
I was sad that Benny died because he was all like nice and stuff to her. And after rewatching it today, the lady who comes to the door, she said, or whenever he mentions that they got there really fast for being social services, because he said it was like an hour drive or whatever. Mm-hmm. She said, oh, the roads weren't that busy or something like that. So you can tell she was kind of lying since she came from a place that was probably like closer than that.
Right.
Yeah, since he was so surprised. I mean, it might be an hour away.
No, not where she came from. She was totally lying to him. Yeah. Do you remember any thoughts you had about 11 after this scene and like how she was able to take down those guys or do you remember what you might have thought or anything like that?
Well, she killed the two guys. I don't know how she did it because one of the guys had like a mark on his forehead.
Yeah.
And I have no idea how that got there unless she stabbed them with like a fork or something.
Yeah, I couldn't tell what kind of mark it was. It didn't look like a gunshot wound to me.
Yeah, it looked just like a line scratch.
Yeah, I thought it looked like a dirt, but now that we're talking about it, I'm wondering if it was a burn mark, like maybe she zapped him and that was like like if you were to, like a smoke mark or from a burn mark or something, not like a blister or anything like that, but you get what I'm saying?
Zap him with what?
I don't know. Her powers, like if she can control electricity, maybe she has the ability like Palpatine to like and use force lightning on them or something. Why are you laughing? Wouldn't it be awesome if she could wouldn't you like to be able to force lightning some people? I'm kidding, of course, but no, I think that maybe she has that sort of ability, or maybe even to fry their brain or something.
All right, you just keep believing that.
Are you telling me to don't stop believing and to hold on to this feeling?
Don't stop. Cut that part out. What was? Oh yeah, it was like run 11, run.
Yeah, like Forrest Gump.
Oh, I was thinking go Diego, go.
Oh, of course you are. Of course you are. Okay. We talked already about the scene where Joyce and Jonathan are picking out the pictures. What we didn't talk about in that scene was the phone ringing. Could you make anything out other than like a little bit of growling and some breathing?
No.
I couldn't either.
I'm guessing like the growling noise or whatever was from the Demogorgon.
Yeah.
And the breathing was probably from Will. I don't understand why he wasn't talking though.
Well, that was my exact thoughts too. I mean, exactly. Why wouldn't he talking? Everything you just said. Unless the Demogorgon has got him under some sort of mind control or he's been told not to say anything. I don't know. But like, then why call? So I'm really... And then she gets electrocuted from the phone. Again, the electricity thing. So...
And then immediately after, Jonathan goes to the phone. He's like, hello, Will? Even though it hung up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's just hopeful. Okay, final scene. It's raining. The boys have got their own search party going, and they find the spot where Will's bike was found because the police have left like a marker there, and then it starts raining. And
Dustin says something like, "Don't you think it's a bad idea that or like something could have like taken him, or something like, don't you think he saw something?" And like that's why he's gone, and we're going to the exact same place that it happened. Like, isn't that kind of a bad idea? And then they're just like, nah.
Yeah, you and I watched The Goonies a couple weeks ago. Well, we did as a family movie night, and that movie definitely played as inspiration to this one, and I think Chunk played as inspiration for the Dustin character, because Chunk was not entirely, like there's some definite differences between the two characters, but Chunk would be like, come on guys, I don't know if we should do that, and Dustin's like, this doesn't seem so smart to me, so that reminded me of Chunk. And then the Chunk had to do the truffle shuffle little dance.
What was that? I was scared for life.
To get into their house. Well, Dustin had to do the arm pop thing to get away from the bullies at school. So that was a scene that kind of reminded me of Chunk. But yeah, this scene definitely where he's like, I don't think this is very smart. Totally reminded me of Chunk from The Goonies.
Okay.
Okay. So it's raining. I can't remember which one of them says, hey, I hear something. Which guy was that?
That was Mike.
Mike Wazowski, that's right. And there they see her, 11. So I'm like really excited now because I feel like this was a great ending to the show. Like I mentioned how good the beginning was. Well, this ending was great too because we saw 11 do something. We didn't see it, but she took out those bad guys. And I know that the story is very much about this group of kids, and now they're together. Like 11 is my understanding, is part of that group. And so like now she's joined that group, and so there's going to be, I feel like the show's set up to take off now. And so that's what really excites me when a pilot episode ends and you feel like it's a bird ready to soar out of the nest and take on this adventure.
I don't really visualize TV shows like that, Dad.
That's what I kind of felt like this one was doing.
All right, you just keep feeling like that.
Well, what did you think of the ending?
Yeah, I like how they ended it with them meeting 11, because then it's also kind of like a border for me. Like, okay, anything about them like doing stuff together, don't say it because it's a spoiler. But yeah, I like the ending of it.
Okay, I can appreciate you not wanting to spoil me. Thank you for that. All right, well that's going to wrap up our episode discussion. Let's move into our listener feedback. We have one contribution for this week's episode. We'd love to hear you be a part of our future episodes. As I mentioned earlier, we're recording this week, the week of, what are we doing today? June 20th. So this week through Sunday, we're recording chapters 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all happening this week. So if you've got some thoughts on those episodes, please send them in right away, and we will include those. You have a little bit longer than that technically, because if you send it in even after we've recorded, I can always kind of add it in as long as we haven't released that episode. And the release schedule, I think we're still going to release one a week, but we have to get these recorded before Addie and I head out of town. So, but bottom line is, don't delay. Send in your thoughts and feedback, because all the episodes are out there. So you can go ahead and do that. Again, as a reminder, please keep your thoughts and feedback episode specific, or anything that's happened prior to that specific episode. So if you send in thoughts for chapter 2, for example, you can openly discuss chapters 1 and 2, but not 3 until we've seen chapter 3. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So with all that, and here's the information to do that: goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback. There you have a variety of ways to send in feedback. Or if you want to give us a call, that number is 304-837-2278. That goes straight to voicemail, and you can just leave a message and we'll play it. And this is from Jeff, and here he is.
Transmissions from the Upside Down. Hey Daryl and Addie, this is Jeff, X-Force 11, calling in about Chapter 1 of Stranger Things. As a fan of Stephen King and Spielberg, this episode really drew me in. I remember watching it the first time and being immediately hooked. It had those things that I really enjoyed about Lost and Fringe. The mysteries, the relationship stuff going on, just the interaction, the good writing that it had. I was just so hooked on this episode. And even a second time, it just drew me in as I was watching it here. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you both have to say, and looking forward to sharing this journey with you. X-Force 11 out.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
The one thing that I wanted to mention too, he mentioned Spielberg and John Carpenter.
No, he said King.
You're right. He didn't say John Carpenter. He did say Stephen King. You were listening better than I was. You and I mentioned, when we were talking about our intro episode, you mentioned something about them coaching or directing Millie Bobby Brown to be kind of like E.T.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? I'm not sure how to take that. I'm not sure what that means. And I still don't know what that means. But I do feel, in a sense, I just mentioned at the end of the episode how we have this group of friends who have stumbled across this girl. And I do get that vibe where she's, in this case, the alien E.T., and they're the group of friends, Elliot and his sister and, those friends who took it upon themselves to task themselves with the responsibility of protecting E.T. And so I feel like this is that place where they have discovered her, and they're going to take it upon themselves to protect her. And again, because we had in E.T. the scientists, and they wore these hazmat suits, and we've seen the scientists and wearing hazmat suits. So I can definitely see parallels already starting to happen with E.T.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Jeff, for your feedback. Looking forward to hearing more from you. I'm sure we will. And your thoughts as we work our way through the series. Once again, to all of you listening, that number is 304-837-2278 or goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback. All right, Addie, lay us down with the social media information.
Okay. So our Instagram is Stranger Things GSM. Our Twitter is Upside Down GSM, and our Facebook is facebook.com/groups/Stranger Things GSM.
That's right. So we were able to get GSM or Stranger Things GSM on all those except the Twitter.
Ugh.
Yeah. That's okay. So we'd love to have you join our conversation over there. Addie is our social media guru, so you'll be interacting primarily with her. But I guess on Facebook it's primarily me, and on the other places it's probably primarily her. But we'd love to talk Stranger Things with you, and it'll be fun too as we work through and season 2 stuff starts coming out and all that. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. Addie and I are going to San Diego Comic-Con in a couple weeks. That's one of the things I said we were going to be traveling. Well, that's one of the weeks we'll be gone. We'll be there 6 days, and I'm sure there'll be some Stranger Things stuff happening while we're there. I hope so. Yeah, I do too. All right, Addie, it is time for Quote of the Week. Now, Addison's going to be picking these out most of the time, and I think she has a pretty good one. What's your criteria for a quote of the week? What are you looking for?
Something funny, something short, and something that doesn't require like a whole conversation to understand the point of. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Okay. Well, I think I probably pulled more of the quote than you might have been intending, because I like to have the full context of it. This is, how long is this quote? Yeah, no, I pulled about 30 seconds. Let's listen to it, and then you can tell me how good I did. All right.
Good of you to show.
Oh, hey, morning, Flo. Morning, everybody.
Hey, Chief.
Damn, you look like hell, Chief. Oh, yeah? Yeah. Oh, I look better than your wife when I left her this morning.
While you were drinking or sleeping or whatever it is you deemed so necessary on Monday morning, Phil Larson called, said some kids are stealing the gnomes out of his garden again.
Oh, those garden gnomes again. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll make it right on that.
On a more pressing matter, Joyce Byers can't find her son this morning.
Okay, I'm gonna get on that. Just give me a minute.
Joyce is very upset.
Flo, we've discussed this. Mornings are for coffee and contemplation.
Chief, she's...
Coffee and contemplation. Flo.
Yeah, Flo, get it right.
Yeah, come on, Flo. So the quote that you were looking for is mornings are for coffee and contemplation.
Yeah. I mean, you don't really need all like that stuff before it. I mean, you could probably cut that out, but yeah. I mean, it's just the one sentence.
I know, but I like to have the whole setup of, because it's mornings are for coffee and contemplation is funny when you see and hear the whole scene.
Whenever I first like saw this quote or whatever, probably on Instagram, it was after I watched the show, and I was like, wait, when did they even say that? So then whenever I rewatched it, I realized like, oh, that's where that part's from. So yeah.
I'm glad you pointed it out, because I actually didn't think anything of it the first time either. So when you mentioned it to me after I'd already seen it the first time, then I had my radar up for that scene when I rewatched it. And I love it. I love the quote. It's a good one. Nice job.
Thanks, bro.
In fact, I would say, let me just skip ahead in our outline here to the Hawkins report, because this is just a perfect little segue. The Hawkins report is the section in our podcast where we're going to have news and rumors. And we've got two pieces, and I mentioned this at the top of the show. These aren't necessarily, this week specifically, are not news and rumors about the show. We will have some of that down the road. But for today, we have two pieces of information that I want to tell you about. The first one ties into that quote, and that is, wouldn't it be cool to have a t-shirt that had maybe a coffee mug on it and that said, mornings are for coffee and contemplation? Wouldn't that make a cool t-shirt?
That would be a very cool t-shirt.
Wouldn't it be cool if you could like buy a t-shirt that had the Stranger Things podcast logo on there?
That would be a slightly less cool t-shirt.
Yeah. Maybe if you went to goldenspiralmedia.com/shop, you could get your hands on such a t-shirt, or maybe even a coffee mug itself that says mornings are for coffee and contemplation. So go check that out. goldenspiralmedia.com/shop. It's a new shop that we've set up, and we'll be adding some more stuff to it that are Golden Spiral Media at large, not just Stranger Things. But yeah, go check it out. goldenspiralmedia.com/shop. Now, the other thing we wanted to tell you about this week is we mentioned the Loot Crate. You mentioned your Loot Crate t-shirt that you got. That was part of, I think, April's Loot Crate. Loot Crate, if you don't know, it's a geeky box that you get in the mail every month. And we've been doing it for 2 months. We get our third box. I think it's actually going to show up this week. And there's a theme each month. Like the first month we did it, and the reason we got it was because it was investigation was the theme. And so there was something from the X-Files and Batman and Jessica Jones and Stranger Things. And we were all like, yes, all of those things, please.
Gets the t-shirt and an extra large. Thanks, Dad.
It was large, thank you very much, and it shrank to fit you, so you're welcome.
It's still slightly big on me.
Okay.
I wear a small, not a medium.
We didn't know which item was going to be Stranger Things, and that's the thing. You don't know. You know what the themes are, but you don't know which items they were going to be. If we had known the t-shirt was going to be Stranger Things, we would have ordered it in your size. But anyway, so go check that out. But also, Loot Crate from time to time, and I'm fairly new to Loot Crate. I mean, I've known about it for years, but we just now started participating in it. They do these special edition boxes, like they've done a Star Wars box in the past, and I don't know what else. But they currently, right now, have a Stranger Things box, and it's like a pre-order. It's not going to ship until closer to when season 2 premieres. But what I don't know, because I don't have a lot of experience with them, is if they will sell out before then or not. So I don't know. All I'm saying is they have a Stranger Things box, and it looks really cool. It's valued at $111, and you get it for $60 plus $10 shipping. So it's really $70, and it's valued at $111. I see what they did there. You can go over to goldenspiralmedia.com/loot, and that link will get you $5 off your first Loot Crate, and it will earn us a $5 credit. So that's pretty neat. Helps both of us out. goldenspiralmedia.com/loot, and go check out Loot Crate at large, and also the Stranger Things Loot Crate they have up for grabs right now.
Well, how neat is that?
All right, let's talk about predictions, Addison. This is where I had a note in here to talk about the best opening sequence. We've already talked about that. What is the monster is another thing that I wanted to kind of talk about. And I shared some of my ideas already. I think it is a animal-human hybrid that escaped. That's like they had it in a room there at the lab. And that's like we saw the crack in the wall, so it broke out of where it was contained. So it got stronger than what they were anticipating. And they were trying to, it's a mutant, kind of like the X-Men. X-Men have, all the X-Men, they have these diverse powers. And this particular one has super strength and the ability to control electricity. But I think it also might have the ability to control things with its mind, just like 11. I think that the 11, like, it's probably 8, 9, or 10. If you were to check its arm, it has a tattoo on it. It says 8, 9, or 10. It's a previous iteration of what 11 will become, or would have become, had she stayed around. Maybe not as grotesque as it appears to be, because they're figuring things out. Like, I think that probably the scientists' ideal is to have whatever they're trying to create with these superhuman powers and stuff, but to have it still look human, where the Demogorgon clearly doesn't look human from that glimpse we saw of it and stuff like that. So anyway, that's kind of my theory on what the monster is. Can you comment on that at all? Or again, I don't want to be spoiled. So, okay. She's shaking her head no. All right. My next thing I want to talk about predictions are concerning Will. Like, what happened to him?
He vanished. It says it in the title, Dad.
Well, thank you. Oh, that settles that. Gosh, I wish I had thought of that. No, but I mean, like, where is he? If the Demogorgon took him and the Demogorgon escaped from the scientists, then the Demogorgon wouldn't have taken him back to the scientists. So, like, did the Demogorgon go find a place to hide out in the woods and Will is with them? And if so, then how could he use the phone? Like, how could Will use the phone? That doesn't make any sense. Unless, again, because the monster, the Demogorgon, has telepathic powers, maybe he can control the phone and make it ring with the power of his mind, or its mind, whatever it is. I don't know. But is Will dead, and will he return, are two questions that I have in mind. Because they're looking for Will. You know, you mentioned Twin Peaks earlier. We were talking about Twin Peaks, and the big question there was who killed Laura Palmer. She dies like the first moments of the show, and then you're trying to figure out who did it. So that's kind of where I feel with this show. It's like, okay, Will vanishes in the first moments of the show, but when is that question going to get answered? When they answered the question of who killed Laura Palmer, Twin Peaks took a completely different turn. The dynamic of the show changed drastically. But I don't feel like that's the case here. I feel like we need to know the answer of where he is he dead, and will he return alive on the show? And I think he is alive, and he will return alive. I just don't know if it's going to be like that. May be the cliffhanger of season 1. In fact, I'll just make that my prediction. The cliffhanger of season 1 will be the return of Will. But he might be like disoriented, maybe not even know who he is or where he's at. He won't be the same, at least not at that point. So that's my prediction. That's my bold prediction.
Never do that again.
What? Okay. And then 11 in the Demogorgon. This was another thing I want to talk about. I already kind of mentioned it. I think the Demogorgon is a previous iteration in the scientific process of whatever they're doing at the lab. The Demogorgon is a previous iteration of what they're trying to ultimately create. And 11 is also one of those experiments. Okay. Anything else you want to add to that, or any predictions that you can? You've seen the whole first season, so I don't know how you could. I just don't. I hate hogging the whole segment, but I don't know what else to do in that segment. All right. So nothing from you on the predictions. Let's move into the final segment of the week.
Meme of the week.
Meme of the week.
Stop breathing forever.
Wow. Okay. What's the meme of the week, Addie?
The meme of the week is there's a lady on the ground. That's the picture. And then the caption is me when I saw the Stranger Things season 2 trailer. Because I literally screamed whenever it came on.
You did. I think this lady is from the I've Fallen and Can't Get Up commercial.
Oh, yeah. So it's Mom.
Wow. You really did. Like, it came on during the Super Bowl. And when you found out it was going to be during the Super Bowl, you were freaked out.
I watched the entire thing just for something towards the end.
And then when it came on, you freaked out.
I screamed. I ran to go get my phone and I started crying.
And then, you videotaped it. Listen to me. Well, you got out your big VHS camera and you videotaped it.
Was it fun walking to school?
Shutty.
Both ways.
Shutty.
Barefoot in the snow.
And then you got online and started rewatching it. Like, you found it on YouTube or something like that and you started rewatching it. Is that right?
I don't remember doing that.
I thought you did. Maybe you were sharing it with your friends.
I know I posted it on my Instagram, but I deleted it. Or I might have posted on my Stranger Things fan page.
Well, cool. I like your meme of the week. It's very nicely done.
Yeah, I like the meme of the week too.
We also got a contribution over on our Facebook page. I thought I would mention that this week. This came in from Jeff, who we heard feedback from just a little while ago. It's 11 sitting in the diner looking at that fan, that death stare that she's giving the fan. And he has photoshopped a pair of headphones on her that, by the way, look like a 1980s era Walkman headphones. Nicely done, Jeff. And the caption says, she listened to the podcast. She gave it an 11.
That death stare is how I look at you whenever you say Mimi or Mame.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up for this week. It's been a whole lot of fun talking Stranger Things with you, Addie.
It's been 3 hours.
It has not been 3 hours. It's been an hour and a half, though. We are so glad that you have joined us for this episode. I still don't have a sign-off, so I'm still looking for contributions from you to what my sign-off should be. But Addie, being the podcasting pro that you are, you have yours. So I'll hand it off to you to close the podcast.
Thank you for listening, and don't forget to stay strange.